Aztecs to Byzantines was a good start. We saw big names, and we saw small names, strong names, and poopy names. But we have more ahead of us. Today we go from the kilt-wearing Celts to the mighty third of ships of the Koreans. And for those who rightfully corrected me on my mistakes, don't worry, the corrections will come. It will just be after the whole list is done. It's easier for me that way. And I'm lazy. One more thing I should clarify here. For diversity, I am counting every clash that happened between civilizations, regardless of how small. For the success rate, I am only counting big wars for obvious reasons, as some matchups happened hundreds of times. The Celts in Age of Empires are Scots and Irish, and their share of medieval history is relatively straightforward: defend at all costs from foreign invasion. Starting from Roman invasions, which counts here because we have the Vortigern scenario, going to fights against the British for sovereignty, the Vikings, and finally the Normans. This is one of the saddest ones to see. They just wanted to live their lives in peace, eating haggis and wearing kilts, but had to fight for millennia against land grabs. Weak diversity and garbage success, an expected minor player. They are getting a rework, but until that happens we go for the 4 dynasties the original civilization is based upon: Tang, Song, Yuan, and Ming. The Tang expanded east, fighting Turkic tribes until they met the Abbasids, and their fate right after. The Song mainly fought against other Chinese powers, which we will have to revisit later once we know who's coming. Until the, guess who, Mongols arrived. The Mongols naturally took over and placed the Yuan in power, and went against the Vietnamese, Burmese, and Japan. Although the latter turned into a double failure, courtesy of divine winds. With the fall of Yuan, the Ming went after Vietnam for round 2, and Japan on the side of Korea. China's biggest enemy is China, but they made some others over time, and placed decently in the rankings. It's hard to put on a list who a nomadic tribe has fought over the course of their history, considering they never settled anywhere, didn't really leave historical records, and were mostly disliked everywhere they went. Thankfully they were big enough to be noted by a lot of other people who lived around the region over time. Many fights with the Slavs, Persians, Byzantines, Mongols, Tatars, Saracens, Magyars, Lithuanians, Poles, Vikings, Teutons, Georgians, and Armenians. Despite being nomads and limited on what they could do against massive names here, they were pretty successful, until the Mongols just did what Mongols do and ate them up in one bite. Strong in diversity and strong in power. Gurjaras and Bengalis are a given, they were neighbors. But they have also fought the Khmer and Malay under the Chola Empire, the Hindustanis later under the Pandya dynasty, and the Portuguese later in the 16th century. Surprisingly enough, no Mongol issues here. They are one of the few lucky ones that were in the blast radius and escaped intact. From what I could find, the Ethiopians during the game's time period have not engaged in any relevant conflict with any other civilization showed in the game, which is very surprising, but it's also understanding. They were separated from northern African Muslim civilizations by a big fuck-off desert, and the only Europeans that went past them enjoyed the fact that they were Christian, leaving them as a peaceful nation. Unless you count the other folks not shown in the game who got a spanking. Who knows, maybe we'll get the Sabaeans or Nubians in a later DLC, and we'll have to remove the peaceful tag from Ethiopia. Another long one for us. Starting with Charlemagne, because for us, their history doesn't matter before that. He fought the Italians of Lombardy, the Goths of Saxony. Might not be the same, but it's the closest. The Berbers in Spain, the Vikings over a long period until they got invited to join France and become Norman. Then they used the Normans to fight the Britons, and fought the Burgundians at the same time. And some fighting here and there against the Ajari and the Teutons. Then we move over to the Crusades, where they fought the Turks, the Saracens, the Byzantines, and the Armenians. And if you want to count what happened before Charlemagne, we also have the Goths and Huns. Big variety. I see the Franks ending up in the top 5 for both letters with good results. The other small Caucasus civilization who doesn't go down without a fight. They held ground against the Saracens, Byzantines, and Turks, and according to Tamar's campaign, won against the Persians, until finally being subdued by, you guessed it, the Mongols. After they were also glassed by Tamerlane and the Tatars. Not a single easy fight for them, only big empires, and they held the ground well. As expected from other Indian civilizations, we can already add the siblings Bengali and Dravidians here as mixed results. There have been way too many conflicts of all scales between them to give proper records here. The Gurjaras are mainly inspired on the Gurjara Pratihara dynasty and the Rajputs. The former fought hard to keep the Saracens at bay with a convincing victory to stop Muslim expansion, and were annoying enough to make sure the Persian Turks of the Ghaznavid Empire did not conquer lands. Although they were sacked to shit, so it's a mixed one. The latter had a lot worse of a time, starting by losing Delhi to the other Persians of the Ghurid Empire, and then to Delhi itself with the Hindustani Tatar Babur at the helm. Decent overall. The Hindustanis are based off quite a few different kingdoms, sultanates and dynasties according to the game's wiki, but I'll stick to the two main ones to not mix up the civilizations and timeline too much, the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal Empire. Gurjaras, Dravidians and Bengalis are a given as I mentioned before, but going chronologically, the first big name to appear is none other than the Mongols. Although apparently throat singing couldn't break the walls of Delhi, but never a fear, Timur is here, and Delhi isn't anymore. Then came Babur with the Mughal Empire, and that lasted a long time, but they still managed to lose to the Safavid Persians in our time period. Huge props for surviving the Mongols, but that gets overshadowed by, being glassed so hard by Tamerlane they went on a hard reset. Following the trend of brutality, we arrive at the Huns, solely represented by the Hunnic Empire of Attila, the Scourge of God. I'll never not get giddy saying this name. On a campaign of terror, Attila fought the Goths, Franks, Romans and Byzantines. Although the Byzantine Empire didn't exist yet, I'll count them anyways, without a single loss registered. But then Attila died after turning around in Rome, and the Huns lost one battle to Germanic tribes and they disbanded. Surreal success rate for them, literal definition of a glass cannon. I need to add something here regarding their success. There is one battle we all know too damn well that lingers as a question mark in matters of outcome. The Battle of the Catalonian Feuds. Most sources I found can't agree on who's the winner, but tend to heavily favor the Roman-Gothic alliance. However, there's a little detail that tips the balance in favor of the alliance, and it isn't a concrete victory, but the fact that it supposedly ended in a stalemate with heavy losses on both sides. Something that inherently favored the Romans due to a stronger societal foundation. Rome could afford heavy losses, the Huns couldn't. We were not here to delve deep into the anthropological consequences of the battle, but the objective immediate result, which was a stalemate. A stalemate against two civilizations the Huns shoved their horses' nuts deep down their throats in every other opportunity, so I'm giving them an overall win. Spanish, that's it. 134 years of existence to be brought to his goddamn knees by siesta people with a cough. Italy is very tricky for a list like this because instead of the beautiful boot we know and love, in the year 1300 it looked like this. And like this in the year 900. And like this in 600. If you thought the Byzantines had it complicated, this is the fucking Hellraiser puzzle. But we'll go in chronological order, assuming Italians as we see here starts in 476 with the death of Rome. Right off the bat we have the Goths taking over, followed by the Byzantines coming to the rescue, recovering the boot for a while, and then leaving when shit hit the fan, leaving Italy shredded like Parmesan. Then the Lombards invade, and the Pope sent a snap to Charlemagne for help, which he confused as a claim, and just took the whole thing for the Franks. No one wants the French in charge, but they helped repel the Saracens and Berbers invading southern Italy, which was great until the Carolingian Empire broke up, and the Magyars sacked the north. A bit later our friend Otto I invades Italy looking for some booty, and the Pope crowns him emperor, and the Teutons gobble a big part of Italy, to the pleasure of absolutely no one around. Sicily was under Muslim control at the time, until the Normans arrived and kicked them out. Barbarossa joins the fun at some point, and the Pope fights the Teutons before sending everyone to the Middle East to take out their frustrations. Then Spain conquered Sicily, Venice fought the Ottomans, and France and Spain intervened in the civil wars. Oh yeah, all of this I just mentioned happens while completely ignoring all the hundreds of civil wars between city-states in Italy. Everyone bitches and complains about the amount of European civs in the game, but Italy needs the Indian treatment. There was no Italy until the 19th century, and I want to play as Venice. By God, I want to lead a pragmatic, ruthless merchant republic so bad. Final note, they escaped an interaction with the Mongols, but not the Vikings, who made it all the way to the walls of Rome before being bribed by the Pope. Surprisingly good results for a civilization in a perpetual existential crisis. Everyone's favorite tentacle porn and cartoon exporter had a very solitary medieval history. The first issue appeared in the 13th century, with the Mongols invading the island and Mother Nature taking Japan's side with a double hurricane twin against them. Then the island caught on fire with civil war until Nobunaga united the country and they went for Korea, but got butt-fucked by Admiral Yi, his turtle ships and the Chinese. No draws for the land of the rising sun, and they end up with a weak spot in general. It's probably worth mentioning that by the end of the period the Portuguese were already sniffing around and bringing priests to check the young boy population, but it wasn't a hostile engagement. The in-game Khmer is solely based off the Khmer Empire. These guys never really had much beef with other Age of Empires 2 civilizations, with the only confirmed interaction being repeated losses against the Daeviet. However, the people of Khmer have fought against the Dravidians and Burmese either independently or as other smaller states. I'll be adding them as full people of the Khmer region, but I'm up for changing it, if it doesn't fit, you know, the whole premise of it. An expected weak result considering the tight corner of the world they lived in and who they fought. The game's version of Samsung Land is based off the three main dynasties that ruled the peninsula during the time period we're looking at. And during that period, the biggest enemy they had was China, whom I completely forgot to add Koreans on their list, and will have to add it on the corrections. And boy, did they get beaten by the Chinese. Pretty much everyone that ruled China at some point has decked the Koreans, including the Mongols, until everyone got together in friendship to repel the Japanese who were being funny. They only have 3 opponents historically until the new DLC comes out, and a single meager victory against them, even if it's a really cool one. 25 out of 45 civilizations covered, and the remaining will be in the next video. It'll take a bit longer because I'm not done with the research on the final ones, but production is in full sales. Once again, let me know if something is missing or if there's a mistake. I already learned some crazy stuff from the first one, like Aztecs fighting in the Philippines against Japanese as mercenaries for the Spanish. The corrections part will be entertaining as shit.